Hi, I'm Oliver,
And I'm Aidan.
and this is another episode of That
That
Crazy
crazy
Music
music
Show!
show.
Today, we're going to be talking about a couple of our own unique performances that we've done during the pandemic and exhibit some of our compositions that we've come up with during this time. For me, I'll be showing you a performance of ambient improvisation that I call Scape, and I recorded my part first, and then I had a drummer friend of mine, Aaron Blewett, record and overdub a drum part on that, and both of us did it in one take, and there's just a really great chemistry between both of us, and he really knows what I'm going for a lot of the time. So it didn't take much direction before he had a really excellent take. And then I just mixed it together and put it up on SoundCloud. And I had some good feedback, and I was just hoping to share it here as well because I really like that piece. And I think, especially with some of the music we've been diving into, whether it be like super complicated music or tone row influenced music. Sometimes it's nice just to have like a little bit of a breather, like a palate cleanser. And so I still really enjoy simpler musics or more stretched out musics like ambient music because of just that. Like it's just a totally different way of looking at creation. And I hope you enjoy that. But Aiden, what are you going to be showing the audience today?
So I guess technically this is the premiere of this piece. This is off of my new upcoming album, entitled Jupiter Volume One. This
Yeah.
is the first track. It's called Io, after the moon Io. The idea of this album, or I guess this project, is there's a series of volumes, and each piece is named after a moon of Jupiter. And I think now there are like 86 or something.
Oh my
So
goodness.
this is gonna take me like 16 volumes, but we'll get there eventually. This piece Io, I guess, is um, a good representation of what ambient music and music involving synthesizers means to me.
Mhm.
So there are a lot of like typical elements, like your standard Moog sawtooth patches, or arpeggiators or things like that. It uses a lot of very simple elements, but they come together in such a way. The beauty is really in the orchestration in this one, and I
What
think that's
instruments
what
do you
I'm
have on
most
the song?
proud. It's all synthesizers, and I think it's all hardware. It might
What,
be all
yeah,
hardware.
why don't you, before we hear it then, why don't you tell us what gear you're using?
Oh boy, I pulled out all the stops for this
Okay.
one. So I used um I used one Spitfire Lab VST back from that free VST video. That was pretty
Yeah.
great. Um, Other than that, it is the Behringer Poly D
Mhm.
for all of the arpeggiator stuff and some of the leads and some of the basses. The Moog Workstat and NTS1 combo is used for a lot of the basses and a lot of the leads and atmospheric stuff as well. There's a little bit of generative Eurorack in it as well, and there's a little bit of upright piano that I mic'd in my living room.
Okay,
Um,
nice.
oh, and there's the Yamaha Reface CP as well for some bell sounds. And I
Wow,
used
the
I
whole
used basically everything I had, and I used some Arturia Matrix Brute samples
Okay,
that a friend sent to me. So it's not my instrument, but I was able to ask for some samples, and so I used those as well.
okay, nice.
Um, yeah,
Wow.
it's a
For
big boy.
It's a big one, yeah. For my piece, it was as far as Aaron's concerned, the drum part. I only really know that like he's using a drum kit. He was using some auxiliary pieces. I think he had a cowbell in the later part of it that he was using very musically. It was really really well done. I was just listening to it the other day, and I was like, Aaron just did it perfect in one take. And then. What I was using, actually, the night I recorded it was the night that I was gonna lend you the Line Six M9 for a
Oh,
couple of
that's
days.
months and months ago.
Yeah,
Then
yeah,
this
yeah.
is old. Oh
Yeah,
boy.
it is a little bit old, yeah, but I still wanted to bring it back because it's just really it it was really good, and it was really interesting how sometimes limitations breed creativity. Because I was just using um, three pedals, and like one of them was for distortion sounds, the Proco Rat distortion.
The rat,
For
yeah.
yeah, for reverb, I was using the New Neighbor Wet at the end of the signal, and then in the middle, I was using all three channels of the Line Six M9. I was using one reverb and two delays. So
Yeah.
the way I had it chained was I had distortion going into two delays feeding two reverbs. So when you do, for example, a volume swell, then it's a very dense and saturated and long decay, and you really soak in that space a lot. And yeah, it was just recorded, and then maybe 10 minutes after I finished recording, then you guys were at the door ready to pick up the unit to borrow. So I just
Yeah.
had to capture something before I let it go for a couple weeks.
Well, you captured something good.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't know if you remember much about it, but if you want to talk about some like of the thematic material that you used or any of the ideas behind the composition, then go for it.
Sure. Yeah. I guess some of the broad strokes of Scape as a composition, because I actually had to recreate it in my recital, in my third year recital, which I did with Aaron
Mhm.
duo at the beginning of the recital, just to sort of warm up the stage, and then we did some standards and other of my originals. But uh, it it starts with an A Dorian section, and because one of the really great ways of expanding the sonic capabilities of the guitar is by utilizing open string voicings. And with, for example, A minor 11 or A minor 9, like many of those are available on open strings. So, like your open strings on guitar are E, A, D, G, B, E. So E is the 5, A is the 1, D is the 11 or the 4, G is the flat 7, so you're in that minor territory. B is the 9, and E is the 5 again. So they're all diatonic. So just by choosing specific notes in the scale as the bottom of your voicing, you can leave most of them really open and have a large spacing, a large spread of the chord, because you can allow some notes open and fret others that are higher that otherwise would be tricky to play in other keys, for example. So A minor tonality to start, and then I do this sort of you hear it in video game music or fanfare music, like flat 6, flat 7, 1
Oh yeah.
motion. But it's very slow and spread out, so it's not like in your face, but like F major, G major, A minor. So you could say it's all diatonic to C. Um, in that, if you wanted like one scale to improvise, for example, over all of them. But then later in the piece, I wanted a key change to keep it from being too consistent and too monotonous, and I go to D major. So essentially, moving up a key from the key of C, roughly, with the chords A minor, C, F major, G major, to the key of D now, and yeah, it's a very clear shift. And there's actually a piece from one of my favorite guitarists, Ben Monder, called Late Green. And I quoted it a couple of times because I just think it's such a beautiful melody of his, and I wanted to do my own spin on it as well, but with my arrangement. And it isn't just a cover, it's my own thing, but I quote it sometimes. But, anyways, that's sort of some of the major sections that you hear. And yeah, I really hope you guys enjoy Scape, and then Aidan's composition, Jupiter
Io.
IO.
Yeah.
Please enjoy. Wow. So thanks for listening. That
That
was
was a great piece, Oliver.
thanks, Aidan. I hope the rest of you enjoyed as well. And please put in the comments below what you thought or what you thought could have changed or improved. I know some people have said that although it's roughly 12 minutes, it doesn't really feel like 12 minutes just because of the development and because it starts with a lot of space. Uh, you don't have that expectation of you get more relaxed and you're not worried about if it's a 3 minute pop tune or whatever. Like you enjoy it that much more
Well, and
because
I think that's such a huge compliment for like simple music and ambient music. People saying that it doesn't feel like the length it is usually a really good sign. Because
yeah,
normally the concern is it's so simple it'll be boring, right? And so
yeah.
if it's boring, then it feels like it takes forever. But the fact that it always feels faster than it usually is means you're doing something right when you write it.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
And before we get into your piece, Aidan, I just wanted to put it to you actually. What were some of the techniques that you used in your piece to get what you were going for there?
Um, so this piece IO is written in two parts, kind of. I think it's also about 12 minutes actually, funnily
Okay,
enough.
nice.
Um, it's the first two thirds are full ensemble, so all of the instruments I mentioned earlier, and the last third is just the Behringer playing arpeggiator stuff and a solo Moog voice,
Okay.
and that's it. Um, so in the beginning, it starts with this little motif that you'll be able to hear played with the reface CP with a
Mhm.
lot of delay and reverb, and then actually in my DAW, I reversed it.
Okay, nice.
So it's reversed bell sounds. And that theme is also, this album is through composed, so that theme is also the last thing you hear on the album as well.
Wow.
In um, the exact same way it's orchestrated. So
Mhm.
it feels like bookends. And this theme also appears between the two sections of this first piece, so it acts like a good bridge. And because of the through nature of uh, the album,
Mhm.
the end of this piece actually ends on a drone, which starts the next tune, which is a ballad, which is I think a good contrast to the end of this tune, which is a lot of fast arpeggiator stuff.
Mhm.
In the beginning, it's a lot of slow development of the theme and introducing other themes and stuff, making use of all the instruments that I have and a lot of digital and analog reverb,
Mhm.
mostly using things like the Moog and the Eurorack stuff for high effects to fill out space, and then using the Moog and the Poly D to fill out like chords, harmony, and melodic material. I think you've heard a bit of this actually.
Yeah, I haven't
Um,
heard the whole thing top to bottom, so I'm sort of hanging
yeah,
on your every word here because I don't know much about this piece that we're about to.
yeah. Well, so like about every 3 minutes, right? It has one of those big builds,
Okay,
and you get some really nice, low, brassy sounding synths,
okay.
which if you played them with
Which
speakers, they
synth
make the
were you
floor
using
shake.
which synth were you using for those sounds, the brassy sounds?
The Poly D and the Moog.
Okay.
It's a mix. Oh, and those are also the Matrix Brute samples as well.
Okay, yeah.
Um, so what better to make huge sounds than three synthesizers, right?
Yeah. Just in
Um,
case you think you could do it all in one synth, forget it. You have to use three.
Oh, you could. I mean, the Matrix Brute, especially if you use its modular compatibility, it's a huge sounding synth. You get three oscillators on one note,
Oh, okay.
but Arturia has a brute factor, which is like a
Yeah,
distortion,
I've heard about it.
but it's not a distortion. It's a lot of synth people or Arturia fans will say it's better than distortion. Some people are like it's just distortion. It sounds really good, really huge. But so I make use of those good big sounds with lots of development, and then you hear the theme that you heard in the opening again, and this time the arpeggiator, which has been going the whole time, but it's been playing simple stuff, now suddenly starts playing in 12 tone.
Hey, a man after
So
my own heart.
as soon as you hear this theme, it's like snap. There's no more tonal center anymore, and it's just these two voices, the single voice of the arpeggiator playing these wacky 12 tone lines, which
Is the
were
arpeggiator on 12 tone or the single voice is on 12 tone?
they're both on 12 tone.
Oh, the same row?
No, they're different. They're not rows. It's just atonal music.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah, sorry, atonal, not 12 tone. Um, but so it's the arpeggiator line was actually inspired by a melody that my generative like computer system that I use for my plant music album spit out.
All
So
right.
this was an album or a melody from that album that I didn't actually use. So I used it here instead because it sounds really wacky and
Do
messed up.
do we want to describe this the generative like code you used, or do we want to leave like the audience wanting?
Well, I think I described it in another episode, but
Oh.
I can be very brief. Essentially, it takes if you're talking Eurorack or MIDI effects, there are two different ways to do it. If you're talking Eurorack, it takes random voltage and then it quantizes them both pitch and rhythmically, but the voltage is still random because it's a Turing machine.
Mhm.
And so you get good examples of random rhythms and random pitches. But
Hmm.
then you feed those random pitches into a harmonizer and through a series of logic gates. So then you get harmony built around a root note, similar to what the modules like the qubit chords or the M4S ensemble oscillator or the chord organ. They take a root note and they build chords. You can change the quality of the chord through
Mhm.
modulation and things like that. And then through a series of logic gates, only letting certain notes through. So then you have things like broken arpeggios, but they aren't played like the way a human would play them because there are notes missing and extra notes added.
Mm.
So you kind of get like an Oliver Arnold's raindrop effect.
Mm. Mm.
That's the simplest way to do it. Of course, to put it through an arpeggiator is only one note. So I feed those random voltages into an arpeggiator, and then I use a separate Turing machine and Harrington 1200 machine, which is a whole separate thing. The Harrington 1200 decides the quality of the chord in the arpeggio, and the Turing machine decides the root. The rhythm is always the same because it's an arpeggiator.
I'm
And
probably
then
gonna have to like go
this
back.
deserves a whole
And
episode.
yeah, yeah, I'm probably gonna have to go back and hear what you just said again because I'm just a simple guitarist, man. Like, the gear hasn't changed except for pedals
Yeah.
a lot since like the late 50s. So,
We'll do a pedal episode to make you happy. Don't
oh,
worry.
thank you. Yeah. But
Um, yeah,
without further ado, though, I'd like to play Aidan's piece now, "I.O." from his concept album Jupiter.
yeah.
Well, thanks for listening so much to this episode of That Crazy Music Show. We really look forward to hearing your comments in the comments below to hear how you enjoyed these performances, perhaps what topics you'd like to hear in the future, and if you had any criticisms or comments on the music, or maybe questions about the gear we're using, we're happy to answer those. But until next time, that was That
The
Crazy
Crazy
Music
Music
Show!
Show.
Thanks for watching. Bye bye.